So I've often said that if you want a different view, or shall we say a different country's view on your own country, go look at foreign press. And for Brexit, when it's come to covering that topic, very, very rarely does it come up on the continent. It does now and again, but it hasn't been a major headline for quite some time when it comes to, obviously, the situation in Brexit and where we are. However, Ireland, of course, different story. Very much more, I think, far more in sync with what goes on in the UK. Certainly more than certainly any other EU country there is. So you get a very interesting, from time to time, articles written from the Irish perspective and about how they view, shall we say, the ongoing strangeness, shall we say, that this country is currently embroiled in, certainly with Brexit and, of course, Boris Johnson being at the head of this somewhat very bizarre circus that we have now all but come to accept at this point. So we're going to go have a look at this Irish Times article, because once again, we're looking at, the myth of global Britain. And indeed, much as we've been banging on about for the past 2 weeks, and again, we've only got to look at the Afghanistan situation, it lays the whole idea that the Brexiteers have been talking about, global Britain being this world player on the international stage and punching well above its weight. The whole Afghanistan thing has just blown it out of all existence. And we've said from the very beginning, this global Britain that they talk about can never exist, because they're talking about a Britain that was an imperial power and that had colonies and had one of the biggest navies in the world at that time. And we've said numerous times, I don't know how many times, this Britain that they talk about can never, ever exist again, unless they seriously intend to just start, shall we say, retaking old colonies. But at this point, I wouldn't put it past Johnson for this. But anyway, we're going to jump into this Irish Times article and find out more about how the myth of global Britain has been indeed laid completely bare. So before we do jump into that, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my Patreon page, or there's a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So on with this. So as we said, it comes from the Irish Times, by Finn McRedman. That's how you say it. The title of The Myth of Global Britain, Laid Bare in Utter Shallowness. Welcome to the HMS Global Britain. It's your captain, Ian Beefy Bottomman, speaking. We're embarking on a journey to the sunlit uplands of the post-Brexit world. Throw away your red tape. It's not needed here. And there is nothing to lose but the chains of the bloated European Union bureaucracy. All aboard. Whatever misgivings the Conservative administration may have, we must offer credit where at least credit is due. Boris Johnson and his compatriots have left a lot to be desired when it comes to managing a pandemic adequately, preparing supply chains for the entirely predictable disruption of a hard-ish Brexit, and of course the difficulty of respecting a treaty that they actually signed up to. But there are experts selling a vision of a heady triumphalism that has very little basis in reality. And this was precisely the energy with which the Secretary for State for Trade, Liz Truss's announcement at the latest Britain's of so-called global future. The very former England cricketer Ian Bottomman has been appointed as the new trade envoy to Australia. Ian will bat for British businesses down under and help them seize the opportunities created by his historic trade deal, Liz Truss tweeted. And of course, I must still point out at this stage, we have no idea what is in that trade deal yet. We still have no idea. So we're still waiting on that news for that. But like I say, this was what we've grown used to, it being in the EU. When we're in the EU, It was out in the open. We knew exactly what was being talked about. We knew exactly what was going on. Now, there is a trade deal being done, but we don't know what's being put in it. We've heard some very distressing rumors about the 15-year gap, about Australia being able to sell more of its products into, especially farming products, into the UK. Apparently will not be there. That was a rumor that has come out from Australia, and Australia hasn't denied it, and neither has Liz Truss or anyone of the government denied that. So that could be a very real possibility that's going to have very real-time effects on a whole lot of farmers here in the UK. And trust me, they are going to scream blue murder if that is the case. Anyway, it continues. But the news was sullied somewhat by the inconvenient realities plaguing Britain as it extracts itself from the EU. Thanks to the supply chain issues last week, the restaurants of Nando's were forced to temporarily shutter after several of its outlets, after apparently running low on the very principal item, chicken. And on Tuesday, McDonald's suffered very similar problems, this time running out of milkshakes. Greggs, which has over 2,000 stores nationwide, has also been hit with disruption to poultry supplies as well. The chief executive of the cooperative group has meanwhile described the supermarket shortages as the worst he has ever seen them. The technical choreography required to try and mitigate such problems must be of very secondary concern to a government who is far more interested in sloganeering and symbolic gestures. It would be hard to try and determine the genius behind Dominic Cummings's referendum storming take back control mantra. We needn't forget the appeals to getting Brexit done, come what may, that saw Johnson even sail into a very hefty majority in the House of Commons. And we've been offered no shortage of cultural totems to mark the new age of Britannia Unchained, the maintaining of the patriotic Brexit coin, Bottom's latest career change, and of course a new UK trade yacht likely to cost hundreds of millions of pounds. This is in the vain politics Johnson thrives on, and it is perfectly suited to the thumping election wins, and the all-or-nothing grandiose of the 2012 Olympic remains the man's greatest triumph. Unfortunately, the project that he was hoping would hopefully define his premiership, Brexit, requires a far different approach. And realizing his vision of a truly global Britain, whatever that actually means, needs more than just wacky infrastructure projects. As Cummings has masterfully been pulling all the strings of the electorate, he was failing to adequately prepare for the project of disentangling Britain from a trade bloc that has permeated every single level of its economy. And throughout, Johnson, though, can try and wax lyrical about a new nation pursuing its destiny beyond the four oppressive walls of the European Commission, he has not done a very good particular job at keeping the basics trying to tick along. Food on the shelves, and of course workers in factory offices and chicken in chicken restaurants. You know, the minor details. But now, in lieu of the membership of the very powerful bloc that organised trade deals on behalf of the UK, the former England cricketer with now a schoolboy nickname of a currently non-existent yacht is now sailing to Sydney Harbour to try and flog its wares, and a proposed bridge link to the Northern Ireland to Scotland that would hardly be completed even if it ever started before the Union fell apart. Johnson would have saved time by trying to localising this jolly ineffective chicanery into one government department, the Ministry for Bad Ideas. Of course, these labour shortages and supply issues are not the sole fault of a chaotically handled Brexit. The pandemic has much to say on this too, as plenty of factory workers were forced to isolate. COVID, in some sense, has saved Johnson from the very hard analysis of Brexit, but this only damages him in the long term. He needs to know that it is not working if he ever plans to try and fix it. But disentangling the two could be like looking through a kaleidoscope on hallucinogens. In the context, maybe Bottom's appointment was indeed as sane as anything else. But here lies the folly of Johnson's revelry. The chromatic confusion between the culture and economics of the affair. These empty gestures are all symbols of something that Johnson wants to believe is purely a cultural revolution, proof that Britain's exceptionalism makes it too big to fail. But Brexit is much a boring, detailed economic puzzle as any kind of cultural shift. The whole myth of global Britain must be laid bare in its utter shallowness as soon as we realise the government is just not interested in making or proving it has any substance. Where is global Britain on the streets of Kabul? Theresa May asked in Parliament. Where is global Britain when Parliament voted to slash its foreign aid budget? And of course, where is global Britain when the Conservatives tried to renege on the international treaty they committed themselves to? Where indeed? And that sums it up perfectly. This is exactly what we have been saying since the very beginning. The Brexiteers had no plan other than they want to do stuff, but they know full well that they can't fully get away with all that stuff yet. They need, shall we say, some certain things to fail. And of course, when we discussed back like the original Brexiteer plan, those 4 key points which were driving the original Brexiteer plan of as soon as we left, the EU would fall apart, that we would maintain all the benefits of the single market with none of the drawbacks, that we would get this amazing, incredible trade deal with the US. And of course, we'd be free to be able to do whatever we wanted in the Northern Ireland discussion. None of that has happened. So the original Brexiteer premise has completely fallen apart, many of which, many of the ERG who were pivotal in assuming that those were going to happen, that this was going to happen. That is why they pushed so hard when Theresa May was going for a far more softer Brexit, because she understood, was a far more moderate conservative and understood how Britain needed that closeness of those relationships with the European Union. That's why the ERG said, no, we're pushing for a hard possible Brexit. We're pushing harder and harder. And I have to wonder whether, as I've been saying all along, this year is all about trying to prove that Brexit worked. Hence why, I keep on saying, look back to when we had those negotiations with Norway. Norway came out and said that the UK was not interested in talking to the EU until next year. And I think they are going to try and sell this year and have some sort of thing at the end of the year to say, look how fantastic the first year of Brexit was. And then in 2022, they can, shall we say, slowly start to, shall we say, capitulate on many things. We've seen, for example, the massive decapitulation on the trademark, going from a purely UK one, which we were set to move to still maintaining the European one for at least another year. We have potential trade barriers coming in on October, which I highly suspect in September we are going to hear that they have been moved back again, because no one wants that trade barrier chaos. Johnson just doesn't want to deal with it. And like I say, if this year is, as I highly suspect, about proving that Brexit is working, then expect those barriers to be pushed back. Northern Ireland benefiting massively because it's still in the single market and customs union. All the Northern Ireland businesses are now looking towards Ireland to get all their stock from and stuff from, the island. They're not looking to the UK anymore. They're benefiting from that. The big thing, of course, is that original first idea that somehow it would cause the EU to fall, the EU to lapse. And quite frankly, the more the EU is there and the more it thrives, which it is, the more we look stupid for leaving a massive trade bloc that is literally 22, that is literally on our doorstep that we have left. And yet we're trying to fight and get all these fantastic trade deals. And again, they're not working out as a lot of people expected. I highly, highly suspect that could be the case. But We'll have to see what happens soon. I suspect, like I say, September. We'll be watching out for those, of course, and we'll have to see what happens this year. And of course, next year, when, of course, Johnson, shall we say, slides back into Ursula von der Leyen's DMs to try and contact her again. So, with all that said, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for everyone for watching. And thank you very much to those people who do support the channel. And of course, we'll see you all next time.